evening, Ajahn, and good evening, everyone here in the hall and in our online audience. Welcome to this guided meditation being led by Ajahn Nissarano tonight. Thank you, Ajahn, for taking this tonight, and also for yesterday's special Lunar New Year celebration as well. Just a quick announcements about the upcoming week here at the BSV. Tomorrow night there's another guided meditation at 7:30 with our lay teacher Sandeep. If you are interested to develop a daily habit of meditation every evening between Monday and Thursday, there is an online guided meditation sit on Discord, online platform. You can find more about that through our website or through our newsletter if you're receiving that. That goes for about 20 minutes, starting at 7 p.m. with a Q&A session at the end. So that can just be a way to develop your meditation practice. And the next week's teaching program will be taken by Ajahn Ranavihari. So he'll be giving the Sunday morning Dhamma talk and the guided meditation next Monday. For the format, if you're new to us, Ajahn will give us a short talk or some inspiration or guidance to start with, and then lead into the guided meditation, which will go until 8:30. At that time, if you have any questions here in the hall, you can raise your hand and Ajahn will answer them. If you're in the online audience, you can type your questions into the live chat, and we'll just alternate between the room here and the online questions. Just as a final reminder, if you are in the hall here, to please put your phone on silent or turn it off if you haven't already done so, just so there's no awkward interruption of the meditation.
That's right.
I think that's all we need to cover. Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you, Langdon, and thank you for making this possible for the online audience particularly. So welcome to all of you online. So that's great, because that's quite a boon for people that we can these days participate online. I think it's much better, of course, obviously, if you're in person, it's you get more of the atmosphere, and that can be very, very helpful for group meditation. But I have joined the Make Meditation a Healthy Habit on the Monday to Thursday and led that. But there is a group energy that you do get from it, so which is great, because a lot of people, some people, they live in places where there are no Buddhists except themselves. So it really connects them, and they're very grateful for that. So this evening, I think the meditation subject, I like to have a different meditation subject. Usually every week every time I teach, I have a different approach, covering a familiar territory for those that know my guided meditations. And this evening, I think a very useful one for all of us. It sounds easy, but it's not as easy as all that, because it's the listening meditation or sound meditation, just allowing the sound to be the object of meditation. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Sounds really easy, and we're all hearing sounds all the time. But meditators, we often complain that, it's too noisy. The sound is really disturbing, the meditation. And of course, when we relate to any experience, whether it be sound, feelings in the body, or often it's thinking in a negative way, if we react to them in a negative way, of course, this is going to be a resistance. It's going to be a hindrance, irritation. And this negative mind state actually makes meditation that much more difficult. So we're really putting an obstacle in our way. And if we can learn, through this sound meditation, to be able to accept situations where we can't change it, of course, if we are able to change the situation, that's okay. But if we can't, many times we find life presents us with situations where we can't change things. So, and of course, when we become irritated or even angry, that is going to really sabotage meditation, because this is one of the big hindrances to meditation that comes up in the mind. And of course, Can we get away from sound? Anyone here manage to get away from sound or noise? Tell us your secret. You know, I know caves can be very quiet, and if those who know Ajahn Brahm, my teacher, who's in Western Australia, he loves caves. But even in caves, there are bats, and he loves bats too, which is okay. They can be a bit noisy. I've lived in Sri Lanka. I lived in a cave. It was really a rock overhang for 8 years, and there were bats at the back of the cave, and they weren't that quiet actually. And they'd have squabbles, and you'd hear this high-pitched noise, and you know, all this sort of thing. So, but underwater is also quite good. Has anybody tried noise-cancelling headphones or earphones? I haven't really tried them, but I think they're quite good. Quite good. But I always think there is something far noisier than the noise, often than the noise outside. What's that? The noise inside. It can be quite off-putting, you know, and our minds can be very noisy with thinking. And so this is good to keep in mind, that we, for the most part, we can't get away from noise. And sometimes people think, oh no, when you go to the forest, there won't be noise there. But has anybody been to a tropical forest? Or even our forests in Australia, they're a lot quieter. Anybody been to a tropical forest? Wow, that can be an experience, especially when the cicadas get going, that shrill noise. I remember in Thailand, because I spent a little bit of time in Thailand at Wat Pah Nanachat. Wow, that noise is incredible. It's very piercing too. So it's going to be a feature of life that will have these sounds, these noises. So we usually call it noise when we don't like the sound. And it reminds me of one of the stories Ajahn Brahm tells when he was living in northeast Thailand at Wat Pah Nanachat. And the villagers were given to partying quite a bit. And that means loud music on the loudspeakers. And they would be partying till very late. And in that monastery at that time, probably still the same, they got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, quite early, isn't it, to have a meeting at 3:30 for chanting and meditation. And so they thought they'd complain to this famous meditation master, Ajahn Chah, about these villagers. And of course they thought, yes, he will intervene. He'll do something about it, because they respect him. And what did he say? He said to the monks, the noise is not disturbing you, you are disturbing the noise. And it's quite true. We really get cranky and irritated by this noise. And also, you know, we sort of think, well, if I don't get some sleep, I'll be a real wreck the next day. But this is actually teaching us a lesson to how to develop the wisdom to be at peace with what we're experiencing and what we can't change at the moment. So this is a very, like a teaching we're getting. And it's something, if we can develop that acceptance, coming to peace with things which aren't the way we want them to be, that is a real lesson. And it will really help the meditation too, because we'll be able to let go of irritation, negative reactions to sound, and what's going on around us too. And this was a meditation subject that I was really taught by an ex-monk now. He was former Ajahn Jagro. Many people know him. Some people will know. Nobody here. It's so long ago now. But he used to teach sound meditation, listening to sounds. And of course, Ajahn Sumedho, he teaches, have you heard of Ajahn Sumedho? Teaches the sound of silence. But I think another funny story about trying to get away from sound was Ajahn Brahm, and when he was the early days of the monastery in Western Australia. And this person had got one of these sensory deprivation tanks. These are the tanks you go into, perfectly quiet and no sound and all this, and the environment controlled, and you float in water. And it's salty water and all this. And so the person who brought it to Perth, it was the latest thing then, invited the monks to come and try it out. There's only 2 monks in those days at Ajahn Brahm's monastery. The abbot, who was Ajahn Chagro then, and himself. So the abbot, he was more senior, he went first, and he went into this sensory deprivation tank and tried it out. And Ajahn Brahm was looking forward to his opportunity. He thought, wow, perfectly silent, wonderful, this is just what I need. But before he got his opportunity, there was an advertisement in the paper for this sensory deprivation tank, as used by Buddhist monks. so it was decided that Ajahn Brahm shouldn't encourage this advertising campaign. But the interesting thing was Ajahn Jagaro, who, as he was then, told Ajahn Brahm, it was incredibly noisy in there. It was incredible. You know what the noise was? It was the breathing, the heart pumping, the blood pumping around the body. You know, it was just, he said, it was just very noisy. It wasn't as peaceful as you would think. So really, it's, in the end, whatever meditation object we use, it's just an object. It's the awareness that we have, that we bring to that object, the mindfulness that we do. The quality of that is the important thing. The objects that we use can change, and they're not so important. We have the breath, that's a famous meditation object in Buddhism, and that's a great one, very transportable, but sounds pretty transportable too, because wherever we go, there will be sounds. And so this, and particularly if you're living at home and you're trying to meditate at home, and people are making noise in the house, the kids or the people that you share with, then we can get cranky or irritated. And this is not useful for us, because this will be part of life. So actually this meditation is something that will be very useful for us in daily life too. And this, when we're listening to sound, when we're hearing sound, it's an exercise in present moment awareness, just being here with whatever we're hearing, and not allowing the mind to let go of everything else, just being with that sound. That's why it becomes the object of meditation, and it allows the mind to let go of other things and become more stable, more peaceful, more focused. And then, as the meditation progresses, of course, we can move from sound to the experience that we're having at that moment, at that time. Maybe the stability of the mind, steadiness of the mind, the peacefulness of the mind. So this is how we can do it. And so we, as I say, it's an exercise in in being in the present moment. And I liked one of my teachers, Aikima, would say, she said, a method is just a method. The right method is the one that works. She was German, she was very practical. And what that means, it works in the sense of making the mind, bringing the mind to peace, bringing it to the present moment. And so this is a perfectly good meditation object. And we start out with just being aware of the present moment, and then we can move to the focus on the sound, as we will in this guided meditation. But the interesting thing, when we listen to sound, it is teaching us a whole lot of things, actually. And I think these are valuable for developing our wisdom, developing insight into the nature of experience, and particularly perception. And so when we listen to sound, we're not interested in identifying the sound. Usually that's the first thing we go to. Oh, it's a truck, or it's a motorbike, or it's a bus. We try to identify it, because sound often is, in a sense, a security feature. It provides us with safety, because we can identify all these things. But in the meditation, we don't need to identify these things. And then what happens in the next phase is that having identified what it is, or we think what it is, it may not be. It could be a recording. But then we start to describe it. We start thinking about it, and we think, oh, this is pleasant, or this is disturbing, etc. And then we start making up stories about it. So we might think, oh, it's a 7:45 p.m. bus that's going past, and etc. And we react to these stories too. We react to the description as well, with liking and disliking. Oh, I don't like that. If we dislike something or we like something, it'll bring up a reaction in the mind, which won't be so helpful. So really, we're getting a lesson in perception when we listen to sound. And it will be based, of course, this thinking that we have will be based on our past perceptions. And we realise how perception works. It's really all those experiences we've had in the past, the database of these experiences. And then we hear something. It works for all the senses, actually. We hear something, then we start to match it. And that's when we get this identifying, oh, it's a truck, it's a motorbike, it's this, it's that. So this is a very interesting experience for us, and seeing the way the mind can really add so much to it, the stories we make from what we perceive. So, and of course, we just when we hear sound in this meditation, we let the sound go through us. We don't sort of resist it, and we're not trying to, as I say, recognise it and describe it and also make stories about it. So then the mind can become more steady, become still, more still, and more peaceful. And as I say, then we can actually, if the mind really settles down, this is what the object does for us, the meditation object, is allows our minds to just use that as the anchor and to let the mind settle down. Have a rest, because our minds are pretty active and during the day through what we do, what we say, and also all the thinking that goes on. And then, and then at the end of the meditation, we can reflect on the experience of the meditation, what we learnt from it, basically. So that's the listening meditation. So why not? Let's try it out. It's quite a good meditation, I find. I enjoy this meditation. It's a meditation in letting be, really, and that's a good quality to develop. So there we are. And so we can make sure our position is comfortable, the seat or the cushion, whatever it is. And for those who'd like to, we can close our eyes. And just to come into the present moment. Just to let the past be, let the future be, and to realise that there's nothing we have to do now, and there's nowhere we have to go for the moment. So good. We can just be here and have a bit of a break for the mind, a rest from all the activity of the day. And the first thing we can become aware of is the body, and just to check out whether the body feels comfortable as it is, or do we need to change or adjust anything, the position of the hands, our shoulders, are they sort of feeling balanced? Is the back reasonably straight without any tension? Just the physical aspects of the meditation, looking after the body. And now we can mentally relax the body. This is a very important part of the meditation, and allows the mind to settle down, to sink into the meditation. We can start with the head, the top of the head, sides of the head, back of the head, and give this soothing, relaxing attention to those areas. And moving down to the forehead and the face, all around the eyes and the mouth, relaxing and soothing, giving this warm, kind attention to the face. And now moving our attention to the neck, all around the neck, and giving it this soothing, kind, mental massage. Now, bringing to mind the left shoulder, starting at the neck, and moving our attention along the left shoulder, relaxing it, soothing it, allowing the left shoulder to let go of some of the tension, tightness, stiffness. And now bringing to mind the left arm, starting at the top of the left arm and moving our attention down the left arm, all around it, soothing and relaxing with this warm, caring attention down to the fingertips. And now bringing to mind the right shoulder and moving our attention along the right shoulder, soothing it, giving it a mental massage, relaxing any of the tension or tightness that can accumulate in our shoulders. Now bringing to mind the right arm, starting at the top of the right arm and moving our attention down the right arm, all around it, right down to the hand and the fingers, soothing it, relaxing it, giving it this warm attention to the right arm. Bringing to mind the back, starting just below the shoulders and moving our attention slowly down the back, relaxing, soothing, giving this warm attention to the back, and particularly any areas that are tense or feel sore, soothing them with this warm, relaxing attention. And now bringing to mind the front of the body, starting just below the shoulders and moving our attention down the front of the body, giving the front of the body a mental massage, relaxing it, soothing it, and giving special attention to any areas that feel pressure or uncomfortable. And now bringing to mind the left leg, starting at the top of the left leg and moving our attention down the left leg, all around it, soothing it, relaxing it, right down to the toes, the foot and the toes, with this warm mental massage. And now bringing to mind the right leg, starting at the top of the right leg and moving our attention down the right leg, all around it, soothing the right leg, relaxing it with this kindness and gentleness, right down to the tips of the toes of the right leg. And now we can become aware of the whole body, just sitting here, comfortably relaxed and soothed. Just aware of what we're experiencing in the present moment, particularly things like feelings in the body, the temperature, and so on. Whatever we're aware of. So we're coming more into the present moment. Now we can narrow the focus to just the sounds, paying attention to what we're hearing, not trying to identify it, recognize it, not trying to describe it. Just allowing the sound to go through us, just allowing it to be sound. And allowing it to be the object that keeps us in the present moment. We can let go of a lot of other things, the past and the future, just being with these sounds, just being with hearing, listening. Not trying to change anything or get away from the sound. Just keeping in mind, this is my object, the sound. And if the mind wanders off, we can just remember, oh, I'm keeping the sound in mind, the sounds that I'm hearing, and come back to those sounds. Just listening, just hearing. coming close to the end of the meditation, and so we can share whatever we experienced in the meditation, whether it be a bit of more peace, more understanding, more stillness in the mind, or some insights. Share that with everyone here for their happiness and well-being. And for all those online, share it with all the beings wherever you live in that home, wherever you are at the moment. And we can expand the sharing beyond wherever we are at the moment, here in the hall or online, wherever we are, to all those humans, the animals, insects, all the unseen beings around us, that surround us, and keep expanding that sharing to cover the whole of the earth. Sharing these feelings, sharing these experiences, the energy of our meditation. And now we can come back to ourselves and just reflect on the meditation. Were we able to just listen to the sound? Could we let sound just be sound? And how do we feel now? Do we feel more peaceful? Does the mind feel like it's had a good rest? And we can focus on what brought these experiences up for us, what caused them. And whatever else we learnt from this experience of meditating on sound, on listening, on hearing. And we can have the intention to develop more of this ability just to be with the present moment, to be with sounds, and just allow them to be sounds without pinning them down, identifying them and describing them, and then making up stories about them, just to allow them, accept what we're experiencing in the present moment, and allowing the mind to rest. And now I will ring the bell 3 times, and you are welcome, if you wish, to come out of meditation on the 3rd ring. So, I hope it seemed like it was quite peaceful for people, I think. I hope it was. How was that for you? And were you able to let the sound just be the sound? And to be at peace with the sounds without having to identify or describe them or react to them.
I think it's very hard not to identify sounds. In fact, as soon as that happens, you are vigilant and you go, what the hell was that? Oh, it was me snoring.
Oh, right. Yeah. As long as when we do become aware of that, the sound, and that we've identified it, we know that. And that's the main point of the meditation, is really that mindfulness, quality of mindfulness that knows what we're experiencing and has got clarity with it, and doesn't respond on, with a negative mind state about it. That's the important thing, to be kind about what we're experiencing. But it is what we're doing all the time. So that's a very good response, actually. That we're always identifying sound, and it's the habit that we have. But it's a very useful habit just to let it be. And what makes it difficult to just let sound, be at peace with sound? Anyone?
For me, I have to know what it is.
Right, yes. And then what happens after that?
Well, once I identify it, that's it.
It's okay. End of story. That's all right, because often people react with a negative, with like or dislike, and then if we...
Well, if you're trying to not identify with it,
Yeah.
you do. But
Yeah.
if that's what you're trying to do, maybe it makes you angry.
Yeah, it could, because you get irritated with yourself and think, wow, that wasn't very successful. And what is the hardest sound to be at peace with? There we are. Anyone? Oh, there we are. The sound of one hand clapping, but I think there's more than one hand. No, I think human voice, isn't it? I think human sounds, we listen. We try to, the words, or if there are words, we try to work out what we're hearing. When it comes to human sounds, maybe songs, that makes it very difficult. If we hear these music or whatever, we start to go for the content of what we're hearing. We try to, it makes it very strong, the desire to work out, identify what we're hearing. And do we notice any difference when there's natural sounds? I think there is a difference. You tend to be more relaxed around natural sounds, depending on the natural sounds. I guess if you're hearing the roar of a tiger or something, or you think it's a tiger, you're perceiving it as a tiger, or some threatening animal, you'd be quite vigilant.
I like to listen to the air conditioning.
Yeah, it is sort of regular, isn't it? It's very constant. So, and do you think being able to let sound be sound would help us with when we are listening to, when we're in daily life and people are speaking to us, so that we don't have to react? Do you think it will help?
You have to understand what they're saying.
Yes.
But it can make you more tolerant.
It can be, yeah. It's not easy with speech to just let it be sound. I think that's quite a difficult one. But there is one circumstance where it can just be sound. When would that be?
Mantra.
No?
Yes.
You could? Another language is what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you were thinking.
Yeah, yes, that's right, that's true. Yeah.
Like a teacher fishing for the answer.
Yes. But it is true, if anybody here has, I've experienced, because I lived in Sri Lanka for 13 and a half years, quite often didn't know what people were saying. But then you can see perception and making up stories about that, you know, and it's all related to I and me, you know, and all this, even though we don't understand. It's very interesting to see the stories perception tells us when we hear sounds, or we even see things actually, and we can come up with elaborate explanations of what's going on. And it's great fun when you find out it's not the case at all. It's very interesting to see how perception works and how we believe it. We very, very much believe in it. But how quick the mind is to make up these stories. So, I will... that's my questions, but if there are any questions from people here on the floor, as they say.
If you do have a question, please
hall.
just put up your hand and we can bring the microphone to you so that people online can hear your question also.
Yeah. Yes, there's one question. Oh, there's one here and one at the back. There we are.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. See you, Jack. Yeah.
While I was doing the meditation,
Yeah.
I kind of started drawing the parallel with breath meditation. As far as I remember, it's an interesting exercise during breath meditation to kind of note whether it's a long breath, like long breaths, short breaths,
That's right.
whether it's shallow or deep. And I was noticing that there was that kind of quality with sound as well. Sounds that were near, sounds that were far, sounds that were long, sounds that were short, sharp, high, low. I was wondering if that is a way to observe the sound without identifying with the content, or if it's like, if there's a similarity in these.
Yes, I think there's always a similarity between meditation objects, and a reason I feel for, in breath meditation, when we identify whether it's long or short, is really to see qualities of the breath. And why is that? Why do you think? I think it's to interest the mind. Then the mind will stay with it. Because that's one of the problems with any object we use with meditation, is if there's interest in it, or we have a pleasant feeling with it, then we will pay attention to it. So it is, and it also, it's very useful, particularly at the beginning stage of the mind, for a beginning stage of the meditation, for the mind to have some activity to do, because usually we're coming from quite busy lives, daily life, and so to change gear very suddenly and just to go to stillness is not really possible. But, give the mind a bit of work to do, and it's keeping the object in mind. That's the important thing, isn't it, really, that it's keeping in this case, the sound or listening in mind. In the case for the breath, that's just keeping the breath in mind. And these are just skillful ways. So I think there are parallels, because the mind tends to work in the same way, whatever the meditation object is. And it creates interest when we tend to... You're not looking at the content so much and identifying it that way, but just responding to the sound you're hearing. So, I think that's a very, very skillful way of listening. Yeah. And did you find that that tendency quietened down over time? Did it become?
I think it came in waves. Like you would move around a little.
Yeah.
But I didn't find it disturbing.
Yeah, didn't find it disturbing. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And there was one question online.
It's okay. We'll just alternate between.
Yes, that's right. And then we can go to your question at the back.
The question from online is, Dear Ajahn, I was practicing present moment awareness, and I found the thoughts getting less, and there were moments with no thoughts. Is this a good sign I'm on the right path?
Absolutely. I think, that's wonderful. If that's the idea of the present moment, and focusing on what we're experiencing in the present moment, is it allows the past and the future to fall off the screen for a while, the focus for us. And this gives us a break, really, from dwelling on the past and the future. So, and a good indicator for meditation, you notice, or I notice, that as the meditation goes on, the thinking does reduce, and that's a good sign. And it, of course, when the thinking reduces, what do we experience? Stillness, more peace in the mind, more silence in the mind, actually, too. So yes, this is definitely a very good sign. Yeah, definitely. I always feel that it's heading in the direction of peace and stillness. And I think there's one question at the back. Yeah, there we are.
So this is a bit different to what I've done in the past, in the sense that I've been taught in the past that when you hear sounds, you need to hear the sound and then decide whether it's a good sound or a bad sound and stuff, and then try to analyze it. But I feel this was more relaxing. So I just wanted to see, is which way things should move. Like, should we start from this side and go towards more stillness, or is it where do you start? Is kind of a question, if you understood.
Yeah, for meditation, it always, if it's going towards more peace and stability in the mind, more strength in the mind, that's very useful. And then it's using the object in a very in a way that can support the meditation. In the usual way that we operate is we always want to identify sounds and work out what they are and all this sort of thing. And you might have heard that famous teaching that the Buddha gave to this wanderer called Bahir in the scene. Just be the scene, in the herd, just the herd, in the sense, just the sense, in the mentally experienced, cognized, they use this word, let there just be that, what's in the mind, and not adding anything to experience, as particularly like and dislike, the mind wanting something or the wanting to get rid of something. These are the, the dual tendencies that are mentioned, So this is an exercise that takes us towards us. Sometimes it's called bare awareness, this idea of bare awareness. But I think I would call it barer awareness. It's getting more bare, but it's probably not without a whole lot of stuff going on underneath. So I think this is a very useful exercise for meditation and for developing the mind in peaceful states, and also developing some insight into, as I said, into perception. It really interests me, because that's the focus I have at the moment, is on perception. And, just to see how experiences of the senses and thinking, triggers these different perceptions, this identifying and then describing, and then the proliferation that happens. And all this really, thinking is the main point of thinking is really, for each and every one of us, is to feel, I'm here. It's me. This is big support for the sense of I and me and myself. This is what it's about, actually thinking. And so we, when we become very silent, it's letting go of that preoccupation of I, me and myself. And so this is something that really we can learn a lot from, actually. Yeah. So Thank you for that question. That's good. Yeah, great. So, there's no more online. Wow, that's amazing. Usually there's lots online. So I hope you can experiment with that. And as I said, it's an exercise in letting be, really. And this is always a very useful thing for us to do because we are great doers. And, so this is something that can be very helpful for us to be able to come to peace in the present moment and to be able to accept things, not just react to things with like or dislike. So this can be very useful for our meditation practice, and we can learn so much from our six senses. The famous teacher Ajahn, he said to that monk that I mentioned, a former monk, Ajahn Jagaro, when he was a monk, a young monk, and he was staying in Thailand in a remote monastery. Nobody spoke English. And then Ajahn Chah, his teacher, came to visit him, and he complained. He said, "There's no teacher here. How can I, learn anything?" And he said, Ajahn Chah told him, "You've got 6 teachers here." 6 teachers, really? And of course this is the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. But then Ajahn Chah said, it's always a catch, isn't it, really? He said, but you have to be a good student. In other words, you have to pay attention to it. We're so used to the senses that we are not aware of how they're working very often. And it's very much an automatic process. So when we pay attention, as this evening, to the sound, then we can learn quite a lot about sound. Yeah. All right, so we can finish off here. Finish off a little bit early, and also, for those who'd like to, we can pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. And that's great.